Thank you. Dear students and young colleagues from the profession, if you are here, my greetings to you and to the organizers, particularly Pratibha and Purvi Chauthani. I think this event would not have been possible without the initiatives being taken by these two ladies. And on the forthcoming occasion of the Women's Day, I think we should pay tribute to all the women lawyers and particularly these two ladies. My worthy panelists here, Professor Rajkumar, who is the moving spirit in the administrative part, you see, of this great event. I bring to you greetings from the Society of Indian Law Firms, the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators India, the CII National Services Committee on Legal Services, and from the Bar Association of India, but also from the American Bar Association as the senior advisor to the section of international laws, this committee which we have today. The topic, as is evident, role of legal profession. I think legal profession is secure so long as you keep on having such grand events, you see, like this, whether it is glocalization or otherwise. So it's a very meaningful initiative by the leadership of this committee of the American Bar Association. The very fact that we have gathered together here is a proof of the success of glocalization. I would like to take you back very briefly as to how this event has actually come to take place. It started way back in 2009. 2009 was the first ILEX delegation, International Legal Exchange Delegation of the American Bar Association section of international law, led by Aaron Schildos, who was the chairman of the section of international law, and Eric Wolf, the senior partner of DLA Piper. We invited them, we mean the Society of Indian Law Firms. They came here, and as they say, they came, they saw, they conquered our hearts, you see. That was the beginning of a long and fruitful association which the Indian legal profession has with the American Bar Association. After that, there was a series of exchange of delegations going from India to New York or Washington, wherever the event of section of international law was taking place, and delegations coming from US and holding international conferences, not only in Delhi, but in Bombay, Bangalore, and other places. So that continued. Then this committee, which was an India committee, was formed initially. It was India committee. Only second committee to be formed by the American Bar Association, focusing a particular country, other being the China. China one has withered out, but India committee is now enlarged to enclose, to have the area of Asia Pacific region also covered and the Middle East also. This committee has seen leadership of many stalwarts from the American bar, many stalwarts from the Indian bar. We have Mr. Pratibha Jain here, He has played a pivotal role in strengthening the ties between Indian legal profession and US legal profession by holding events. Even during the COVID period, we had many conferences, virtual conferences, and that initiative was carried on along with some other leaders of the Indian bar like Risha Najox and Shikhil Suri, Asim Chawla, and then we pass on to the present leadership headed by these two very distinguished ladies, that is Pratibha and Purvi Chauthani. So this event itself shows glocalization. What does it glocalization means? That when we meet people, we discuss issues of common interest. When the Americans were coming here, we were discussing data privacy, data protection, privacy, then taxation issues, investment issues. So many issues were discussed. Why we were discussing those issues? It is to adapt, if possible, to the requirements of the other country within the framework of the existing law. That is what is glocalization. Localization plus the global reach of your discussions. That is what happened during these events, that when the US top people were coming here, we were having events and mutual discussions with them. Similarly, when we were going, and I remember an incident when Mr. Lakshmi Kumaran was addressing one of the events that had been organized by the section of international law for our SILF delegation. He was speaking on American law, American taxation laws, and there were so many questions posed to him by the American audience, you see, about their law. So that is the reach of, you see, the knowledge which is shared, which helps in glocalization. We can't shut our eyes, you see. Therefore, it is not a light-hearted comment when I said that events like this, you see, they actually project what glocalization stands for. I would define glocalization as how respective local laws of the countries can be harmonized for mutual and global benefits. This is what is, in my view, ought to be the definition of glocalization, how respective local laws of the countries can be harmonized for mutual and global benefits. And shining example, very recent one, was a visit by 23 judges of US state courts visiting India at the invitation of the Society of Indian Law Firms. This is the largest ever delegation from any country of the sitting judges of the entire country. 23 of them, they came here. And we had an excellent exchange of views, so much so that our Honorable Chief Justice of India not only gave audience to the 23 visiting state court judges, but made a personal presentation lasting for about 1 hour on what is the scene regarding the Indian judicial administrative system for 1 hour. That was followed by a meeting with the Delhi High Court Honorable Chief Justice and all the judges, sitting judges of the High Courts. That is why these meetings take place. It is to understand each other's, you see, the laws which are there, the interpretation of laws, and how those can be harmonized. I received messages after that. and I would just like to read it very briefly to you, what Justice Sanjay Taylor, who was the leader of the delegation, an Indian American, now successfully based as one of the highest judges in the United States, he said, "Dear Lalit, I would like to thank you for help in arranging meetings with the Indian justices and for your never-ending warmth and hospitality." When he says you, it means our Society of Indian Law Firms. It is not personal to me. Your stewardship of the relationship between the Indian and US legal fraternities is unmatched anywhere. The reception you held for us provided an excellent means to build on past successes. I look forward to welcoming you and your colleagues, including judges, to the United States and to Chicago, where he is based. But a very telling letter came from, again, one of the very esteemed judges. He says, "I too join my colleagues to thank you for making our visit to Delhi very special. Thank you for the hundreds of hours and resources you spent planning for this historic visit of delegation of US judges. All the events were so meticulously planned and were perfect in every year. Meeting the Chief Justice of India, Honorable Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, was awe-inspiring. Hearing him speak of his vision on access to justice was very special and thoughtful, and confirmed our realization how globally we are all connected with similar wishes and aspirations." That is a part of glocalization. And then the lady judge goes on to add, "There are no words to describe how special it was to be in India with you. We will cherish and carry this memory with us for the rest of our lives." This is what the American judiciary has felt, duly responded by the Indian judiciary by giving due recognition to these eminent judges who came here. Now, importance of keeping law as a profession. Now, this may be particularly relevant for the young students who are here. So long as you keep law as a profession, I think the future is secure. But I know I'm talking to some of the American audience here, but please don't make it a business. Law should never become a business. It should be run as a profession, and particularly in India. What does that imply? It implies that you have a social and professional responsibility to the society. It is not just advising your multinational or big corporate clients. It is also, you see, to give it to the society in whatever way you can, either in pro bono activities or in the field of free legal aid, creating awareness about the rights. Therefore, keep it as a profession, because we have a legacy emanating, you see, right from the father of the nation, who was a lawyer. The first Prime Minister was a lawyer. The first President was a lawyer. Sardar Patel was a lawyer. Dr. Ambedkar was a lawyer. And that thing has continued right till today. Whether it is the BJP government or the Congress government or any other government, lawyers have played very significant and important role so far as the formulation of policies and adherence to the rule of law is concerned. Therefore, that tradition should not be upset, you see, by making law into a business. I'm conscious of the fact that as a result of Bates' decision of the Supreme Court, United States Supreme Court, it is now possible for US lawyers to advertise themselves on electronic media everywhere, and we do not want to do that. In India, we have to retain that sanctity of the legal profession. We are not selling our profession. We are not selling our expertise. We are rendering our service to the society, to the country. So that is my advice particularly to the young people. And remember what Abraham Lincoln had said, you see. We have now 5 crore cases pending in India. So when we talk of legal profession, we talk about digitization. The Honorable Chief Justice also spoke about it. The learned Solicitor General also spoke about it. But no one touched upon this aspect as to what are we doing about these 5 crore cases which are pending. Are the citizens getting the justice which they deserve in the Constitution, which is, you see, enshrined in the preamble of the Constitution, that we have to give ourselves justice, social, economic, and political. That justice is not being delivered to the citizen. Therefore, that has to be kept in mind. And with the institutions like the Jindal Global Law School, I think this spirit of giving to the society, I think will be there for all times and for the students. Because in my view, settlement of disputes is the only way to reduce this pendency. Litigation is not the answer with 5 crore cases pending. Arbitration has yet to take off. Therefore, mediation and settlement of disputes. And that is what Abraham Lincoln had said. He says that mediation is the answer. As a peacemaker, the lawyer has a superior opportunity of being a good man, as a peacemaker, not as a litigant lawyer. Then he further says, discourage litigation. Persuade your neighbor to compromise where you can. And I finally add, whatever I have been preaching everywhere, that a bad settlement is better than successful litigation. That is one way where we can give it to the society and keep the sanctity and relevance of the legal profession. If these principles are followed and adhered to, I am sure that legal profession will keep shining very high and will not be converted into a business. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. You know, I think we just did an amazing thing of actually starting early in the morning. The house was full. So thank you, audience, for being here on time. Very senior people here in the audience here, you know, cutting short their breakfast and being here. I've got 4 managing partners, you know, who've been having discussions with me for this panel. They have been amazing, not just in terms of giving time for this panel, not only just contributing financially for the conference, but just the amount of support and the confidence that they gave us for getting this conference organized has been the backbone of the whole conference. Today's the last day. Ajay, you were here yesterday, so you saw, but you know, we were able to pull the industry together and do this after a very long time, thanks to the support of all of you. So firstly, I just wanted to thank you. It's only when you have leaders that are willing to give without conditions and work for the betterment of the industry that this profession, I shouldn't say industry, this profession will move forward for the next generation sitting here. On that note, let me welcome you all. And Ajay, if I can start with all of you, first to just give me your views on, you know, what is the future of the legal profession looking like? We have the next generation, a lot of them sitting here, looking at all of you some of you have been here from the beginning when we didn't even know what law firms were. Everybody knew about legal practice as, professional practice in courts. And then in the last few decades, we've seen this profession grow into law firms, which is very much more coveted today, I dare say, even than the bar. So where are we going from here? It's grown tremendously, but where are we going from here? Ajay, if you might start.
Thank you, Pratibha. First of all, I think note of thanks to you and to Rajkumarji for putting this together. You've been very kind in all your appreciation of the work we've done, but actually we have to recall that this is somebody who's pushing the whip, and gently, of course, but persuasively, let's put it that way. Yeah, so it's a good question, because at the end of the day, when we look back at the profession, people like us started our practice in the pre-liberalized India. I started my practice as an accountant and practiced as an accountant for 7 years and then shifted to the legal profession. I think just looking where we've reached from where we were, I think the profession has evolved much beyond our expectation, but I think that's also because India has performed beyond our expectations. Did I ever think in my career that I will help a client do a $12 billion acquisition? Absolutely not. So when people talk about, oh, India hasn't done enough to liberalize, and we say, hang on a minute, it's all relative. How much change we've seen. But the other interesting thing that we saw was that the profession evolved exactly as you said, especially in Delhi. There was no concept of corporate law. Even today, if somebody asks me, what do you do? I'm a lawyer. First question is, which court do you practice in? The moment I say, well, I run a firm, the interest is lost. Ye to vakil nahi hai, ye to kuch pata nahi kya karta hai. That's the reality, fake lawyer. But the fact is that it took a very long time to learn or to work at getting people to pay for advice, especially in Delhi. Delhi was a city where it was the capital of India, Supreme Court, so it was a litigation-based environment. So when you said, the first time we said, R-based rates, SALI-based rates, are you crazy? You haven't even got us a judgment. You're talking about advice, reading this agreement and saying, fees chahiye, but wo bhi ghante ke hisab se. So yeah, things have changed dramatically. We were hungry for work. We never had, work was not taken for granted, that you would get it. Where I think we are heading is that we have to continue to evolve. As we saw this period, there's a lot of change in this period. We practiced when there was no email. We used to work with telexes, then faxes, then we got into email. Now you've got Zoom. So that's one part that, we are bringing the world together. But I think we have to continue to evolve. And evolution is not new, and I know we're going to talk about artificial intelligence. Evolution is not new in the profession. If you look back, many things that we used to do 15 years ago are today redundant. FIPB applications, we used to file 100 FIPB applications a year. We used to give advice to clients on expatriate taxation, which is now available on the internet. So you have to look ahead and start wondering what is going to become a commodity and what is not going to remain a service which somebody is going to come to you for. So I think that's the future, that you have to keep evolving. The one thing I will say is that we have to find a way to recognize the value of advice. This whole award system and this reporting system is all deal-based. You can end up playing a very small part in a transaction in tax, literally advising on some tedious issue, but you can get a client a relief of billions of dollars in a litigation. That doesn't count as a transaction or a deal and therefore never gets credit. Advice that you give a client on regulatory matters, how to conduct business is so important, but that you'll never get people who do that get recognition. So I think somewhere we've got to realize that, are we giving the right incentive for people to focus on being lawyers, because lawyering is about knowledge, whether you apply it to a transaction or you apply it to advice. And merely because you're not on the transactional side of practice doesn't mean that you should not get the external recognition. Of course, you get the recognition from your client, you get the recognition from the firm, but I think we have to find some way to fix this particular aspect of this focus on deals and how many deals you did versus some real lawyering skills as well. So as long as we keep that and we keep evolving, I think the future is still interesting and good for people who want to join the profession.
No, that's so true. I started the regulatory practice at NDA because, as a GC before that, I saw the dire need for, getting the right direction there, and it just hardly exists. And I realized why it hardly exists. Because you don't get the recognition, and we're all hungry for recognition somehow as lawyers. Already, you're a fake lawyer as a corporate lawyer, and then on top of that, so we really do need to, you're right, we really do need to think about how to have that aspect of the practice be highlighted more. Love to think about it more. Akshay, your views.
Yeah, so hello everyone. Just sort of taking off from what Ajay said, I'm going to talk a little bit about AI, but before I get into that, when we talk about evolution, and particularly for all the younger members of the audience, I started my practice close to 30 years ago, and at that time, the legal profession in Mumbai, and particularly law firms, were very well established. So unlike New Delhi, Mumbai had a tradition and a history of law firms. And some of those law firms had actually been around for 100 years. And they completely ruled the market. But when we talk about evolution, if you look at the top 5 law firms when I started my practice in the early 90s, most of them do not exist. And not one of them is a top 50 law firm today, 25 years later. So, evolution is something that will keep happening. As law firms, we need to recognize it, we need to act, we need to, adopt systems. One of those firms, a very famous firm, I won't give names, but most of the elder members of this audience will know it, didn't make a partner for 20 years. It was just sort of inconceivable. So I think that, we need to evolve, we need to learn from our peers across the world. And it's something that is very, very important that we keep pace with what's happening on a global basis, but of course adapt it locally for ourselves. In preparing for this talk, I said, we were talking about AI and the impact that AI has. So I cheated. I went to ChatGPT. And I basically said, okay, so what's the future of how is AI going to affect the legal profession? And in less than 30 seconds, I had a 200-word answer. I'm not going to bore you with all of it, but this is what ChatGPT says about how AI will affect lawyers. 1, it will enhance efficiency. It'll perform tasks like legal research, contract review, and document drafting, which can help lawyers save time, streamline their workflow. 2, it will improve accuracy. AI can analyze large volumes of data with greater speed and accuracy than humans, reducing the risk of error in legal analysis and decision making. 3, it increases access to legal services. AI-powered legal tools can make legal services more affordable and accessible to the general public by automating tasks that would otherwise require the involvement of a lawyer. This is a summary of what ChatGPT did for me in preparing my answer in less than 30 seconds. So, clearly there is going to be a lot of reliance on AI moving forward. The question that one's always asked is, does that mean that AI will replace us as lawyers? And my clear view is absolutely no. It's just a tool that will help us. It'll help us be more efficient. And sort of examples of AI being used at the moment, some of you in practice already seeing it, whether it is review of contracts, whether it is analysis. If one was to look at discovery, not so prevalent in India, but in other parts of the world where there's a lot of trial-related work, particularly in the US, it's almost become a necessity to have AI tools. And in fact, I was reading a very interesting article where one of the authors of the article has actually proposed that if you don't use AI, you will be subject to malpractice. because you're not making use of the best tools that are available and you're not giving your client the right level of service. I would love to hear the audience's views on that if we have time. Then again, judge bots, right? So for very simple, straightforward cases, can we actually have AI judges, who are basically handing out sentences for things like traffic offenses? Of course, it brings along a lot of ethical questions. There's questions about copyright. We've seen that in the US at the moment, where there's a whole bunch of questions as to whether AI using information that's sort of easily available and hashing that, is that sort of infringing someone else's copyright? So there are equally a lot of questions that do come about. But what is very, very clear is that it's going to make our lives as lawyers much easier. It's going to put a certain amount of pressures on us, but our lives will be easier, we will be more efficient, and it's something that's here to stay.
That's actually very interesting comment on, I can tell you, as a general counsel, I would tend to agree. Today, if when some law firm is doing due diligence, and especially on the regulatory side and litigation side, if there are tools available through which they could have, determined if there was a litigation or a regulatory issue, we would pull up the law firm if, they didn't check on that or didn't have that tool. So I would think, as in the future, as a general counsel, if these things, I don't know if they're validated yet, the technology, but if they are, then absolutely.
It's interesting, just a sort of a linked point, right? When I started as a litigator, and I was in the Mumbai bar, and one of the most useful, the useful books we had was a librarian used to manually go into every judgment and say, this has been relied upon, this has been distinguished, this has been overturned. And we were relying on this one librarian in the Bombay High Court to do this for us. Think about where we've come. If you are doing any kind of research, AI today will actually pick up every single judgment that you've relied on and see whether it's been overruled, whether it has been upheld. I mean, you've just got it on a fingertip, as opposed to that old librarian.
Well,
Yes, true. And judges don't get misled because they have access to AI as well.
On a lighter note, I'm just surprised from all that I've heard of ChatGPT. It didn't say, I'm going to take over your profession, you loser.
In fact, it actually says, it's obviously very smart, right? It actually says that they will not take over. Yeah.
Good to know. So there you go. Validated by the technology itself. And then are your views.
Yeah. Works, yeah. So, thanks, Pratibha. Well, I'll bring a slightly different sort of view to this. I think the future of our profession is actually represented in this room that I see. I see 50%, a little bit more, of women in this room, which to me is very representative of where this legal profession is heading. When I started practicing in the early 90s again, as you know, you're aware, women were very, very few and far between. Women as partners, managing partners, pipe dream, and I will say that very, very confidently because that was the fact. I still remember when I started practicing and, I started this firm, and I would walk into a room, and this actually happened in a meeting. I walked into a room and I waited, and the client came and he waited, and we were sitting and we just kept waiting, and he kept, and I didn't know whether we were expecting somebody else to join us. So at one point I said, are we waiting for someone? He said, no, I'm waiting for Mr. Krishnamurthy to come. So he didn't think that I was the partner or I was the lawyer. He just thought, she's some assistant and, her partner is going to come and join her. So, there are several such instances, but I think it's getting better. It's definitely getting better. And I think that I believe, within my own firm, and I see within, amongst other firms, I see a lot of women, not just as lawyers, as associates, but in leadership positions, in strategy, in sort of making decisions, in leading. I think that is where I would like to believe the legal profession is heading. And it is no more, I still remember an old boss of mine saying that women cannot be put in leadership positions because they'll get married, they'll have children, and then that's it. It's a hobby. I mean, these are conversations that one did sort of have, but those are not true anymore. Women are doing it all. We're having it all. And I think the men, the discerning men are seeing that. And I think that is where I see the future going. I see a lot of women in the workforce, and it delights me to see that. Other than that, I think that taking a clue from what Akshay said about AI and technology, I think the future of the legal profession is also going to be more emphasized on human skills. Earlier, because we did not have the advantage of AI technology, it was just you would read the law, you would apply it, you would give your advice. And that was it, right? It was almost by rote you would do the work. But today, first of all, law is more nuanced. Secondly, is all the basic aspects of law is being done by technology. So you don't need to do that. So where do you come in, and where is your value? And that is your human skills, your human input, if I'd like to use a generic term. It's the soft skills. And those are things that one will need to hone, that one will need to develop, and one will need to really perfect for you to stand apart from every other lawyer in the field. That's my take on it.
Thanks, Naina. I just need to recognize, you've got Zia starting a law firm, and then Pallavi starting a law firm. So when I moved back to India, I was like, India is much far ahead than the rest of the world. I practiced in New York, I practiced in Tokyo, I practiced in Hong Kong. I was the first woman in our Tokyo office. And it was, they really thought I was an oddity. It took me a while to really break in with my colleagues. So, when I moved to India, I was like, this is great, I'm home. And I'll be honest, I have very rarely felt being thought of as a woman, maybe because I came in much senior. I was already, 10, 11 years into practice when I came back to India. I'm not sure that's true of the younger folks. But I've had situations where I had none of these, but I had a managing partner of a law firm come and tell me they don't hire women because they get pregnant. And I was pregnant at that time working. And I was the GC that they were marketing to. And I was like, this is really ingrained because he's not even able to see, who he's marketing to. But I think we've done really well because now that I'm in the private equity industry, comparatively when I see the law firms and the senior partners that come, diversity is much more stronger in our profession. And I must give credit where it's due, whether it was the men or the women who led this profession from the beginning. I have found them to be all very, very inclusive. All the except for that one exception I was talking about, most of the managing partners I have met have been very, very inclusive and have really mentored women in this profession. And I hope this generation continues to do that. Nishant, your views.
Thanks, Pratibha. I was just wondering what's left to be said when you've got Lalitji, Ajay, Akshay, and Naina speaking ahead of you. And especially when... So I feel the future of the legal profession is extremely bright. Fundamentally because lawyers are supremely adaptable creatures. And I like to say this very often, we're like cockroaches, we can survive a nuclear blast. But jokes aside, just putting things in perspective, I think many of our professions and organizations have developed with the economy and how it has evolved, right? But when we compare the size and the breadth of the Indian law firms with certain other economies, I think we're scratching the surface. We're the 5th largest economy in the world today. But if you take the size, if you just consider the size of the top 5 law firms, I think in relative terms, we're still very small. And that's for certain reasons. I feel that it's got a lot to do with how we have organized ourselves and how we offer our services to clients. And that's where I feel that there's some design thinking that really needs to come in for Indian law firms to serve their clients better. Again, if I were to throw out some numbers, the largest law firm in the world, Kirkland & Ellis, did revenues of $6 billion last year. But it's an international firm. Let's talk about a national firm. Let's talk about the largest Chinese firm. And I believe that the 10th largest Chinese firm is perhaps 3 times the size of India's largest firm, right? And again, it comes down to how we serve our clients. And in more recent times, we've seen law firms think along those lines and again offer their services in a way where we're more meaningful and relevant to our clients. And you'll find so many situations where a client is served by multiple practices and partners in a firm. And I think that's where, when you bring those services together and you become more meaningful to clients, that's when clients also start valuing your services, right? Ajay spoke about his evolution in a Delhi market, which was so challenging back then, where people said, oh, if you're writing an agreement, it's perhaps not as valuable as you fighting a case for me in a court of law, right? And but again, you've got to really show clients the value that you're adding to the business, and it's not also just about offering multiple practice areas to clients. I think even in each one of those practice areas, we have to get deeper. So it's really about getting wider and deeper. And as long as we have that in mind and we're working towards that, I really feel that we've got a great future.
See, if I may just interrupt here, the future of legal profession is inextricably linked with what type of lawyers we produce. And that is where the role of legal education becomes very relevant. That is one aspect that needs to be properly attended to. And I'm very sad to say that the Bar Council of India, which is the regulator, I don't think proper attention is being paid. We have national law schools. We have such eminent private institutions like Jindal Global and Amity and others, but our law schools are not, teaching what they ought to be teaching in law.
I think everybody here will probably agree that, what we want from the law schools is the basics being strong and research and analytical skills. Rest we end up teaching them anyways because the practices are so unique. But Nishant, if I can just stay with you. So you talked about the importance of lawyers in this profession having a symbiotic relationship with their clients. But also the economy, right? I've seen Trilegal grow with the economy. What is it? What is the role of lawyers to, and the balance also between ethics and business and us as a profession that is going to help grow India? I just feel like I never thought about it when I was coming into the profession that I'm actually going to help build the economy. But I almost feel like that's my mission today. So, the balance between ethics, business, and the country as a whole.
So we've got a particular practice in the firm. It's the infrastructure and energy practice, and they say this very often. They said, in the last 20 to 25 years, we've worked on so many projects of national importance and strategic importance that we really feel like we've contributed to the economy in a big way, right? And I think that kind of thinking perhaps applies to every practice area, right? If you take some emerging practice areas like ESG, for instance, and a lot of law firms are doing great work and developing capabilities on the ESG side, right? And I think ESG as a theme and is so important today, right? And it's so inextricably linked to us as a profession and to the economy, that I really feel that practitioners in that area perhaps will have the most to contribute in times to come, right? Again, we must all realize what's happening in the larger economy today, right? We're all very happy about assembly lines, manufacturing capabilities moving to India, right? It makes us proud to think that, we're kind of snatching market share from other countries, but it will come at a cost. It will come at a cost, and that cost will be to the environment. And it's extremely important that the government of the day, the parliament, as well as the lawyers, think about developing policies that are environmentally and even socially friendly, right? And that's where I feel, the role of lawyers, law firms, as well as in-house counsels is very important. With this import of, manufacturing capabilities into the country, there is perhaps a huge cost to pay. And it's really up to us to how we kind of limit the damage, and not just limit the damage, but to use more environmentally friendly technologies, make our policies incentivize those technologies, right? And really to create an environment, right, where it's a symbiotic relationship between business, policy, and all the advisors who serve clients and the government.
And I know that, again, each of these law firms spend a lot of time working with the government on committees, on suggesting, such changes. And I think that's a very strong ethical part of our profession. Because we have such an in-depth knowledge of the industry, working with our clients, and then, then converting that into laws. It's a very unique skill that the government doesn't have today that we can provide. So Lalitji, if there's one thing that SILF should be doing is, helping the law firms come together to provide government with, that kind of insight. I think, Ajay, I don't know what you think, having seen, but I almost feel like that's something only we can do. I don't see anybody else being able to do it as selflessly as we can do it for the country.
No, I think we can, but there are positions or, projects, take decriminalization. It was very close to our heart, and, we made a presentation to Amitabh Kant in December 2019, and actually started a dialogue on why, what was the new way of looking at it. Till now, if you see all the reports that have been written, the economic survey, everything talks about expanding your infrastructure, more judges, which is important. But there has been nothing discussed about reducing the pipeline of litigation. There's nothing. If you look at the reports, there is no report that you will find. So we worked with CII and we made this a mission and we produced 4 reports. And now you've seen at the end of the day, the new bill has come in which 42 acts are being decriminalized. And we took the company law, I was on that committee, and we decriminalized a lot of acts, sections, and we took that as the basis. And we've given them a total of about 90 sections, of 90 statutes. They picked up 42 right now. We had a meeting at DPIT, and once that framework is in place as to what they've agreed to decriminalize, and some of that is very, very, we used to fight over it, when we raised this issue, that no, this cannot be decriminalized. Those have been included. And what we are hoping is once that bill becomes the law, then all the other sections, all the other statutes that have got left out, we've had discussions with the government, this will become the model to build that in. So I think if you, and it's going to help judicial reform, because at the end of the day, it's going to reduce the cases. You've got 3.2 crore criminal cases pending. When we last looked at this in November 2021, the number was 2.94 crores. It's gone up by 32 lakhs in a year. And this is just the lower courts. So, you talked about justice and whether we're getting justice. So some of these things can be taken up. It is hard. I agree that, there's no institutionalized basis, but they've tried it. Invest India got all of us together. We created subgroups, etc. But I think we have to also, because our system of incentivizing our own associates with our times and they spend, we also got to, as leaders, make them feel that you're not going to be treated worse off merely because you got non-billable hours. Nishant, I'm sure you have to have that challenge in the firm. Akshay, you have, and I'm doing all this, what is the credit I'm getting? We prepared a report on the migrants. I don't know if you've seen that. It's up on our website. We prepared reports on the whole migrant issue. And we actually showed that there was an extensive failure by corporates in not doing their duty as well. There were so many benefits that these employees were supposed to get, which were not given. And we blamed the government, we blamed everybody, but we put it together. We had, a team of 10 people, and I told them, don't worry, it won't affect your hours. We'll still recognize the effort that you've made. So some of it has to come from us.
That's amazing work. Thank you so much. Decriminalization, as we'll all agree, without that, attracting even more investment into the country is going to be impossible. We get a lot of bad rep for that. Naina, coming back to you on ethics. I'm going to stay on ethics because, we have a very young crowd. And, the legal profession gets joked about a lot for completely opposite reasons. So, what do you think are the big ethical challenges that you face? And what do you do to keep on track and keep your firm on track?
I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer this in a way that is informative to this crowd, but because for me, ethics trumps everything else. It's a no-brainer for me. It has been a no-brainer even when, I had one client and one lawyer. Even today, it's very clear. There are certain values that you hold dear to yourself, whether it is the values that you grew up with in terms of, I will take care of the environment, I'm going to do justice to this client. It's not just going to be about the money, it's going to be about a purpose that I actually believe in. These are things that you hold, and sometimes it gets very easy to kind of whitewash those values and sort of do it for other reasons. But I think personally, and even as a firm, we've been very, very clear. We're very clear in what our values are. We've listed it out. And I think I keep, ad nauseum, I keep sort of repeating that to my lawyers at every occasion that I can. So it's, and I honestly believe this, that success will come. It will come. You don't have to worry about that. Don't run after the success. Don't run after the money. And that's what I'd like to tell the young lawyers, because sometimes money can kind of, blind you to everything else. Work for what you believe in. If there is a cause that you believe in, if there is just the passion, for me it's just the passion of providing the service of law, of just practicing law, of providing that service, that kind of satisfaction to the client, I just do that, and everything else is just white noise, right? When I do that, everything else falls into place. So when I say ethics, I mean it's not a hard concept. It's a very, very organic concept. You've got to decide what is right for you, right? But once you've decided that, don't dilute that with anything else. That's my...
Wonderful, thank you. We'll come to the questions. Akshay, if I can just come to you. I honestly believe that what we do and what the clients believe what we do, or what our practice is all about, or the society in large believes, or the students, there are a lot of misconceptions about our practice. Do you want to talk about what you have seen?
Yeah, so the first misconception is that we make too much money. That's a joke. Some of us do. Some of us do, some don't. Yeah, yeah. Given the fact, yeah, given the fact that there's no councils
He's
in
the
the
only
room.
one quiet.
No, but I think that there are some misconceptions. I'll basically go back to what Ajay said, right? Is that I think lots of clients don't understand the need to come to lawyers at a very early stage. They do not understand that prevention is always better than cure. And maybe this is a very India-centric answer, but I think that in India, it's yet viewed as you go to a lawyer when you have a problem. And it's extremely important for us to explain to clients, or to get the message across that no, we actually, we're counsel in a very broad sense of the word. We can basically help you facilitate a lot of what you're doing, and that will actually come back to help you in future as opposed to come back to bite you. So again, it goes back to what Ajay said earlier about how people in Delhi were like, why do I have to come to you for an agreement? We have an agreement, we write it down on a piece of paper, and you'll be surprised that yet continues to exist in many industries, even in Mumbai. So if you take the entertainment industry, for example, film stars yet want to do one-page term sheets and say that's enough, despite the fact that budgets have now gone into tens of millions of dollars. They're yet they're just signing off one-sheeters and saying, oh, this is enough. I don't need to do more. Do you want to?
I just wanted to talk about a different point since you talked about money and what lawyers. The fact of the matter is that I think that the profession is enjoying a sweet spot, and I think it's a message for all the younger. Let me rephrase that. We have only 3 categories in the firm: young, very young, quite young. So when I talk about younger, I include myself. That's why when Pratibha was looking at Nishant and saying younger, I said, "Humko kyun bhai tumne date kar diya? Aisi kya baat hai?" But if you ask a doctor, I have so many friends who are doctors, they will tell you that the price of life that a person is willing to pay for is lesser than what he or she will pay a lawyer. A lawyer will say, my retainer is 10 lakhs of rupees, they'll give it. A doctor will say 5,000 rupees for a consultation, people will crib. So the fact is that we are today enjoying good lawyers. I mean, there is a lot of problems that, there's legal, it's a very large profession. But when I compare good lawyers and good doctors, I think we are doing far better than our expectations ever were. And I think we have to recognize that. I see, a lot of this gripe on these, we keep hearing about these, anonymous sites where people keep talking about their hours and this, that, and the other. And I just wonder, why don't these people ever go and work with a doctor or go to a hospital and see how a, doctor works? First, it takes you till 27 to become a doctor. And then, and my father was a doctor, so I'm familiar with that, how hard it is. But there is no concept. Work from home. I used to always say that, listen, what if the doctors decide we are also going to work from home? What if the cops decide we will work from home? If the architects say we'll make work from home? How if the government says we'll work from home? I mean, the government was working right through. After all, how were we getting bijli, pani, internet to do all the stuff we were doing? Somebody was there. But I think that, so the different point, I think we need this sobering thought somewhere in the profession that folks, get real. Don't blow it. You have a sweet spot, don't blow it. This is time to work hard, Just focus on working hard and stop griping and stop gossiping.
Can I get you to come to our firm and talk to our associates?
We're sending all the juniors to you. We'll have time for questions. On that note, if I can just ask you, not that you're not young, but if you go back to the younger, so it's all relative, so to your younger self, which is true for all of us and even these students, when you started the practice, if there was one advice that you had to give to yourself, what would that be?
Actually, that's what I said. Stop griping, stop gossiping, work hard, don't have expectations. I mean, we are going to campus and people are already saying, do you have a weekend policy? Do you have a work from home flexibility? What is my future? What is my growth? I used to tell myself, 5 years, I didn't know what 5 years ago, I didn't know what my future is. I'm asking, this kid is asking me to define the future of the growth. I mean, their expectations have just become, listen, I'm not a difficult person. People actually smile when they come and meet me in the office. So any of you think that I'm this very difficult guy, I'm not like that. But I'm being honest. I truly think that people's expectations need to get real. And I think that is the one message I feel that the generation that is coming up is truly that just this is the time to roll up your sleeves and just work hard and not bother about your weekends and Sundays and assume that we are just sitting out there to draw the blood out of them and, that we are just going to treat them like chattel and commodities. But and this is not the case. I mean, there may be, individually people may have, sometimes have these complaints, but it's not that's our ethos. So that would be my advice to them.
You're being kind. When I started practice, I was actually told we are going to suck blood out of you, and that's what you're getting paid for.
I'm actually just going to intervene here. So for all the young people in the audience, the one tip that I would give you is you need to be like Ajay Bahl. And I don't mean it, his personality, of course, he's a great guy, as you probably figured out. But he did something that is very, very useful. He's also a chartered accountant. And I'm not suggesting that all of you be chartered accountants. But if for those of you that want to be commercial lawyers, it's extremely important that you understand finance, accounting, and have a general idea of how to read a balance sheet if you want to be a successful commercial lawyer. And I think it's something, and we were discussing this just as breakfast this morning, it's something that we as lawyers tend to overlook. We tend to compartmentalize. We sort of, run away from accounting, tax, finance. I think it's extremely critical that all of you do courses, self-learn, whatever else it is, if you want to be a good commercial lawyer.
Same question, Naina, for you and Nishant.
Okay, to my younger self, okay, there'd be three things that I would say. One is never, ever, ever justify your seat at the table. Second is do not bring gender into your profession. And when I mean that, if you want to be treated equally, then behave equally. Don't bring your gender in to get any favors. Third, this is not about me at all. This is about the legacy that I am creating for the next generation.
So, piece of advice to myself, download ChatGPT. But again, I feel what's really worked for me is just passion for what I do, passion for the profession, and wanting to get up every day and to do the same thing, perhaps in a different way, and in a better way, and serving clients. I think the ethic or the ethos of serving your clients and finding solutions, helping their businesses and their organizations is very, very important for me.
If I may just add here, as a word of advice, particularly to the young students here, don't just read law. You have to enlarge your vision, enlarge the horizons, you see, read literature, read history, read economics in order to be a good lawyer, and particularly in the age of globalization, you need to know much more than law. Of course, law you must read, but besides Contract Act and IPC and CRPC and all those things, but read at least 2 newspapers every day, one financial newspaper and one other general newspaper. Keep your general knowledge on, because now a lawyer is expected to know more about than the client. But it so happens that the client knows more than what the lawyer may know even about law. Therefore, keep that in mind. Thank you.
And you still get paid for it. You're in a profession where you learn from your clients and you still get paid for it. Remember that.
Sorry, we ran over time despite starting early, but I know that people are dying to ask questions, so we'll take a couple. I apologize to the next panel. Dr. Suraj Singh has been asking.
Well, after doing the practice for more than 30 years, the question about the ethics and the real one. Imagine you are doing Prime Minister Narasimha Rao bribery case, and somehow the President of the Congress is implicated. You are offered a bribery of 50 crores here or in India. What will you do? Number one. That was the real situation I faced. Second, you have won a case at the High Court. High Court says land acquisition, give compensation to the farmer, go to ADM, that is Additional District Magistrate, and he will give. You go over there, he looks at the figure, says, 300 crore बनते हैं, इसमें हमारी सेवा क्या है? What should you do? If you don't, the case is not implemented. If you do, you violate your ethics. So my question, under these concrete circumstances, particularly the second one, where your ethics will come?
Mr. Suraj Singh, you have put in 30 years, I have put in 61 years. But we have not faced this situation, and I don't give free advice, particularly on these matters.
Because of your wonderful advice, I lost 50 crores in 97 when I refused the bribery. And those 300 crores did not come because I refused to give the bribery.
You see, my practice is limited only to lakhs. I have not gone into crores as yet.
In the back there. Yeah.
So right now we have been talking only about, thank you, ChatGPT, but there is one more tool I just like to introduce, that is GPT Sonic, which does the real-time search for all the AI tools. And ChatGPT is only a database which is up till third quarter of 2021. So there is a Chat Sonic also. And then using AI as a tool, like I was all in for the traffic violation, AI should be there. It is a wastage of judicial time. But there was a video circulating again from the American bar where they showed a lady, she was not given a place to park, she was homeless and she had a child. And ultimately the judge awarded her $50 rather than going to the AI which has issued 3 tickets to her. So my thing is that law is only a legal profession which is more human and it should be more humane. So we should use AI just as a tool. So this is just I wanted to contribute. Thank you.
Sure, yes, absolutely. I mean, I don't think that you can replace human intervention in anything. And also just on an allied point, since we're talking about, which I didn't talk about earlier, is that there is obviously a lot of scope with AI to have biases, right? Because, the AI is an algorithm which is being fed with data, like you said, and, the 2021 point will change very soon, and there will be more and more equivalents of ChatGPT easily available. But the point that I was making was on biases. So you need to be very careful that you don't allow AI to actually dictate something based on a particular bias. It could be a gender bias, it could be a racial bias, it could be any kind of bias.
Marcos.
Hi, thank you all for this wonderful, wonderful panel, for your insights, and for a fascinating discussion. Following up on Mr. Bhasin's comment regarding what law schools are not teaching, and on AI, in many jurisdictions, including my own in Chile and South America, and for what I know, throughout Latin America and in many European countries, civil law jurisdictions at least, this gap is huge today without the AI factor. So we receive top law students, just graduated at our law firm. They come with their beautiful law degree as lawyers, and they're not really lawyers, they're memorizers of the law. They know a lot of the law, but they don't have lawyer skills. They don't have analytical skills, they don't know how to negotiate, they don't know how to draft, and the difference between a memo and an advocate's writ. So we take approximately today 2 years to educate them and to make them lawyers. With AI, I think that gap will be much larger. I have no doubt, and I don't think it'll replace our profession, I totally agree, but it'll replace several tasks that usually first and second year associates, and even in some jurisdictions, third year associates perform. And the gap will be, now it's minus 2 years, and then it'll be 3 more years. I think that we will be asking, the law firms will be asking the law schools to bring me a third year lawyer. So that gap I think needs to be filled by, my thought would be, by some kind of interaction, of association of law firms with law schools. So is that happening, or can that happen in India in any way? I will be moving to try to do this through the American Bar Association, because this needs to happen, and needs to happen now, because if that gap, with the speed of AI, we can be replacing many of these tasks that first and second year associates do in 6 months or in a year. So this needs to be happening now.
Thing is, it can't happen in law school,
yes,
so, Mr. Bhasin, it'll have to be done by the law firms.
Yeah. You see, when I started my practice 61 years ago, there was only intelligence. There was no artificial intelligence at that time. And I firmly believe that there can be no substitute for human brain. Human brain is that what is created this intelligence, artificial intelligence, which will always remain artificial. It is the human brain will supply. Your suggestion, your point regarding good interaction, you see, has to come from the law firms with the law students. And I'm very pleased to inform you that our Society of Indian Law Firms, we interact with the law schools all over the country in a very meaningful way. As a matter of fact, only 2 days ago, one of our very eminent members, Mr. Jyoti Sagar, was speaking, you see, to the B.M. Munjal University students. He has spoken earlier also, all over. And he highlighted the need, to have simple English being used, so that the common man also knows what the lawyers are speaking about. This sort of interaction, I am going, you see, to some universities. I visit 2 law schools every month. So all the members are involved in that exercise. It's a good suggestion which will be implemented. Thank you.
Thank you. I know there are many questions, but we are already running 10 minutes late for the next panel. I can request the panelists to stay outside, bid on the silent auction that we are running for iPro Bono, which is a not-for-profit organization providing legal advice to the marginalized sections. So please, if I can get you guys to participate and then take those questions. Thank you so much. In a 3-day conference, this, that when I was curating it, this was the only panel I wanted to moderate. So thank you very, very much for your time, for your support. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you to all the panelists for a very informative session, and thank you to the moderator as well.